Okay guys, welcome to the Talking News. Please like, subscribe, do that right now so you don't forget. Hit that notification bell. That's so you don't miss out on any of the new uploads I have when I put them on. Also, today what we're going to be talking about is San Antonio, Texas. They have had a crazy amount of human remains that they found in a short period. So I kind of took a glance at it and I was seeing where people were thinking maybe this is a serial killer. So I had to look into it for you, and I found out that it's really not a serial killer involved. It's something even more dangerous. And we'll talk about that later on at the end of this video. So first, let's start going over the people that were found and who they are and how they were found. Okay, so back in June, there were two Hispanic males believed to be in their late 20s or, their early 30s that were found dead near the railroad tracks in the 1300 block of Thorin Boulevard. So one man was identified as 43-year-old Carlos Serrano, I hope I pronounced that right, Mendoza, though his cause of death is still unknown and the second victim is yet to be identified. So neither one of these males showed any visible signs of trauma, and so in the investigation into their death is still ongoing. So, we got two males that are dead right there. I'm sure we're waiting on they're probably checking for drugs and that sort of thing. But this is definitely a question and a red flag. So, hopefully you'll find out more on this pretty soon. Okay, so in April, they find another set of remains, and I remember this one. It was off of the Government Canyon State natural area, and at that time, Andreen McDonald, we were looking for her pretty hot and heavy, and Bexar County Sheriff's Department thought it might have been Andreen McDonald. That's what they were hoping for. But what ended up happening is after the plead for assistance in identifying the woman's remains with a post-mortem sketch sent on to social media, it ended up getting an identification of the 39-year-old, and she was a homicide victim. She was described by her family as a drifter, and no one close to her had reported her missing. So, yeah, she had charred remains in that area, and that's why they thought it was Andreen McDonald. We still don't know much about this girl that ended up missing. All right, so when I get time, I'm going to try to do more on this woman because I feel like we need to. Anyways, this is what I know. Okay, her name is Norma Pacheco. I hope I said that right. That's Pacheco. I've never seen that before, so I apologize if it's not pronounced correctly. Also, so they do think that this was another homicide, and it's just so sad to know that somebody that young, 39 years old, nobody really missed her. She was gone for a time, and she's considered a drifter and also a victim of a homicide. So y'all keep that name in mind when we hear the word serial killer, because we're going to watch some of these people that we're going over today and see if we can figure out what's going on. Is there a serial killer on the loose? All right, guys. So in March, on the 1200 block of Fair Avenue, a man's body was discovered in an apartment complex, and neighbors had complained of a foul odor kind of seeping out of the unit. And this has been going on for about a week before his body was discovered. But the building employees checked and disregarded the odor as it was coming out as a dead rodent. So authorities believed his dead body had been in the closet for months and suspected foul play. He was later identified as a 43-year-old Thomas Leons, and he was found to have died from multiple gunshot wounds. So, my gosh, so this is an apartment complex, so what you would think that somebody would have heard something. So here we go. Keep that name in your head, guys, because we have two now that we can consider for a serial killer. But to me, neither one of them, as far as I can tell, show any signs that there might be a serial killer. But the fact that he had the gunshots says to me that, they're most likely gang related, or somebody was pissed. Now, I haven't had time to look up, incredible details on these guys, but I wanted to share this story with you because I thought maybe you might be interested. And in case something in the future was to come up, we can refer back to this as well. So, right now, there's a lady named Catherine Proctors, and her body was in an easement on the city's north side on June 22nd. So, her body was so badly composed at the time it was at the time that it was found, if I can speak, that the police were unable to tell how long she had been there. They couldn't tell her age, her sex. They couldn't tell anything. I'm waiting to hear more on this, but she's just 45 years old. They're not telling us if it's a homicide or not, but write this name down too, guys. So in January, initially, an unidentified body of Eduardo Beltran, I think that's how you say that, and he was 37, was found dead on the side of the road on the city's south side. Police said that the man had suffered a gunshot wound to the upper body and may have been killed elsewhere before being relocated to, let me spell this for you, so it's Moursund Boulevard, where he was found. So Paul, who was 42, was identified earlier this month as a suspect. And they believe also this is a gang-related homicide. And like I mentioned to you guys before, it's all close to the border there, so the gang and the cartel stuff is really starting to get completely out of control, and that's because we've ignored it for so long. All right, so we're moving on to July 16th, where a cab driver found a body downtown San Antonio near the 700 West Commerce Street, which was earlier that morning. The police say that the man appeared to have suffered a stab wound and a small laceration to the forehead. So his identity has not been released, and his death is currently being investigated. So we'll have to find out more on that later, but it definitely doesn't sound like that was an accident. So that's probably another name you might want to put down, but we're dealing with a stab wound. We don't know who this guy is, so we really can't even guess what might have happened with this guy. So on July 15th, a delivery driver came across a recently identified body of Mark Anthony Ramirez, which is only 22 years old. And this is on the side, he was on the side of the road near Rustic Oak and Running Springs on the city's north side. According to this article, the medical examiner found Ramirez had died of a gunshot wound to the head, and his death has officially been ruled a homicide. So police arrested a suspect Wednesday night, and a suspect, Eliza Marie Cantu. So she actually said she used social media to meet up with this guy, pulled out a handgun, then shot the young 22-year-old Mark Anthony Ramirez. Isn't that something? Okay, so this one's sad. So July 14th, they get a phone call from a relative reporting that she had drove by one of her relatives' home, had called her, had unanswered phone calls, and this went on for several days. So police go out there and they find an unidentified elderly woman lying dead in the home, and this is on the southeast side. So it looks like that the window was busted out and broken, and the house was completely trashed. And police who responded to the call noticed a foul odor also coming from the home, and found the body in one room, and also found another person, a male relative that was alive but unresponsive, lying on the floor in a separate room. The male relative was taken to the hospital, and authorities continue to investigate. So this is absolutely horrifying to see this. What do you think happened with this one? We're still waiting to see. And if you do happen to hear on some of these stories that I mentioned, I won't have time to keep up with all of these. Put it in the comments below. Share with us, guys. It'd be so much appreciated. But yeah, this sounds like somebody went there and robbed the poor guys. Okay, so June 11th, we all are very familiar with this date. And this is the time that Andreen McDonald's remains were found. They were found on the 600 block Aspect Road. And her remains were lying under a mixture of wood and cow bones. And so a few days later, Bexar County Sheriff's Office confirmed that it was the remains of the 29-year-old businesswoman Andreen McDonald. So her husband was arrested before they announced that. That was a very exciting day for me. I was glad to see that. A lot of people were very excited to see he was not going to get away with murder. So this one we know for a fact has nothing to do with any of those other cases, therefore cannot be related to a serial killer. And a lot of people, we do suspect that the daughter may have witnessed what happened, to her mother. And that's the saddest part of the story. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, so July 9th, the bodies of the missing divine woman, Jessica Sanchez, and her ex-boyfriend, Jorge, I can't say this, so it's Jaramillo, were found off County Road 4514 by the landowner. So Sanchez was last seen on June 30th, and authorities believe Jorge had broken into her home and kidnapped her at gunpoint in front of her children. Their bodies were found about 100 yards away from where Sanchez's car had been abandoned a week prior, and officials believe that Jorge killed her before finally taking his own life. So how they found them was on July 10th. They seen a group of circling vultures, which led to that discovery of the human remains along Salado Creek at Tobin Park trailhead. So a man who noticed the vultures called the police after he found the human skull. And so police come out and done a wider search of the grounds. So what it's saying here is the search led authorities to the second decomposed body about 75 yards away near the Oakwell trailhead. So the case is still under investigation and awaiting an autopsy. But yeah, we can probably conclude most likely this isn't a serial killer, but it could be. There's a chance it could be more to it. But what about the fact that the police found the abandoned car, or somebody did, and their bodies are only 100 yards away and they didn't find them? What is up with this? It just doesn't make sense to me. Look at the Savannah case, you look at the Kelsey Barrett case. They had evidence just sitting right there, and it just seemed, how did you miss that? All right, so for the last one, this one, it made me sick to my stomach. So July 7th, a 71-year-old Jacqueline Louise Creighton was found in Sagoon home, where she shared it with her daughter and granddaughter. Get this, guys, because this confused me. So they find her decomposed body, but the time of her death was 2016, 3 years ago. She is believed to have suffered from a non-threatening fall in her bedroom and died on the floor several days later after her daughter failed to get her medical attention. Investigators arrested the woman's daughter, let's hope I say this right, Delisa Creighton, and charged her with second-degree felony of injury to a child under the age of 15 for exposing her to a deceased body, with more charges expected to follow. So in other words, this woman was living in this house with her young daughter. 3 years with a deceased body lying openly in the floor is what I'm hearing. And there's only one reason that she would do something like that, and this has to be for the money. She was probably cashing in the Social Security checks or something like that. I'm certain we'll find out something soon. Or if you've kept up with the story, you're familiar with it, drop some comments below, please. Let us know. But it's very sad to know this is her daughter. I just don't understand it. I hope that the police don't only bring justice, but they try to find out why she did something like that. That's important. What made her feel that she could leave her mother lying there helplessly to die? Maybe it wasn't an accident. So anyways, guys, what do you think? So what we're hearing is the number of death tolls of this matter have doubled this year in San Antonio area. They're thinking it might even triple. What is that saying, about us as humans? It's saying, number one, we have issues more than, one type. We're having issues with crime. We're having issues with homicide. We're having issues with the taboo crimes. We're having issues with people having morals and values. There's a lot of issues we're facing right now, and I'm sure I missed a bunch. So I hope you were looking at these maps that I loaded of Texas. They show you the infiltration of gangs, cartel members, and their routes throughout Texas, leading into the main body of the mother United States. While people continue to argue that when we address these issues that it's a racist issue at the border, it certainly is not a racist issue. These are very serious issues that a lot of people in Mexico are running away from. And now it's following them in because we're not able to put a tap on it. We're not able, we have a system that is so flawed at all the borders in this country. And that system, until it is fixed, will continue to hurt the innocent families trying to get here legally and help the crime, the criminals, the gang members, the cartel. So we have to start fixing these things, because most of these things that we're reading about in San Antonio, which isn't on this video because my channel doesn't support that, but I might start doing it, is the fact that we have a lot of gang and cartel taking over this nation in a very negative way. And so right now we're also dealing with the fact that the cost of living is ridiculously high, which is also going to spawn new, how do we say it, native criminals. So we really are going to see a humongous rise of violence within our country. So we need to get our foot on the heel of all this type of problems that we have and stop them from moving forward. You know, it's not just up to the government to defeat these issues, it's up to us. We are the people of this nation, and so until we can work together and come up with solutions, we will continue to have these issues and they will only get worse. Now, do I think some of these people might have been connected to a serial killer? Because on these stories, somebody was mentioning that it might be serial killers that were involved with these cases, which I'm not going to say there's not, but it doesn't seem to be the case to me. So what do you guys think? Comment below. A lot of it has to do with people growing up in those very violent ways of life. So gang members, cartel, and the lower income places, not saying that they're all bad people, but there are bad people, higher percentages in the low income areas than there are in the higher income areas. So these people are growing up around that. That's our children. And so they're not learning good things. So what it does is it just feeds the violence, it feeds the evils, and we're going to see more of it. But I wanted to let you know this video is out to kind of address several issues that Texas is facing. And one of those is they are concerned that in San Antonio, which is the most dangerous city in Texas, they're thinking they might be dealing with a serial killer. But as of now, I don't see that. But we have these stories and we'll start paying more attention. And I guess in the future, we will find out a little bit more. Okay, so let's take a look at these statistics. So you have 2019 versus 2018 in San Antonio, Texas. And as you can see, we're not even but 3 months in on this record. And we are passing the number of homicides compared to last year. This is nuts, guys. Now, someone mentioned to me, they said, well, you're being very biased against Mexico. Why not Canada? Well, Canada doesn't have these stories, do they? They don't have any threats or violence or crimes or cartel coming into America causing us issues. So I did want to share this, guys, because you're wondering why these things are happening. And you first have to accept the truth. Number one, you have the cost of living is rising. Then you have cartel and gangs. Then you have people that are just morally lost. There's no morals and values. So, you know, what do you think? Share it below. Share your opinions. Share your ideas of why you think America is taking a turn downward. And this has been going on. I noticed this started probably about 10 years ago. It started to rise, but not enough to really say, hey, I think this is what's going on. You know, this is why. But now we have enough information to conclude, you know, an idea. So definitely, I'm going to say this. I'm not a big churchgoer. I am not. But I do believe that lack of Christianity within this nation does show, because it did teach the children to be good, to have morals, to love one another. Although churches were not perfect, there were bad ones. Like anywhere else, bad people will infiltrate something good. It doesn't matter what it is. But overall, Christianity really did push um, a lot of kindness and goodness, morals and values within this nation. That's where you get your great organizations like St. Jude, Red Cross, etc., and so on. And St. Jude is one of the most pure organizations in the United States of America, where everything that's donated to them goes to children with cancer. But now we have organizations all over the place who are using it like a lot of the politicians do to profit from. So you guys, if you're giving money to organizations like that, try not to anymore. No longer. The only one I can name offhand that's 100% is St. Jude's. Now, I've thought of starting an organization myself, and I haven't quite figured out which direction I want to go with this. Whether I want to build an organization to help people who are struggling, who are homeless, because that's a huge problem in America, or to help the missing. You never know, maybe one day I can do both. But as of now, have you guys ever seen Player Ready One? I think that's the name of it. Or, can't think of the other movie right now, but do you see how the regular people are living? They're living in these run-down mobile homes that are stacking straight up into the air. It's because they don't own property and things like that. Go to the big cities like California, where socialism is taking over, where they're allowing monopolies. Monopolies, guys, like Disney, are going to strip away your American dream. So unless you start doing something, which is a totally different topic, I know this, but I got led into it. You guys have to start realizing that you're not the enemies of each other. The monopolies like Disney, etc., they are your enemy. They're the ones that they're owning everything, which means that they control what your kids believe. And do you want that? Do you want to lose the chances to have their own businesses and chase that American dream? Because right now, that American dream is being pulled under the sea, to the deepest crevices of the ocean. Like I mentioned, guys, that's another topic, but I do want you guys to be awake for that. Also, be looking forward to new videos. I'm working on them now. I'm trying to find new stories. There's a lot of stories out there, but trying to find that story, I think, needs the most help. I'm having a little difficulty finding that story, which I haven't had that problem in almost 6 months. Not at all. So guys, hang in there with me. My husband had an accident, as most of you know. I've been sick, so we have a lot of doctor's appointments, especially dealing with workman's comp with him. It's been a nightmare. So I will see you guys soon. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and most of all, thanks for caring.